Hi, this is Andreas Moritz, and today I would like to discuss a topic that many people ask me about, and that is the consumption of butter. That is cow's milk butter. And I can tell you from my own experience, having eaten unsalted butter for at least 55 years now, I can tell you that it never has harmed me in any way or noticeable way. I've had many health problems when I was a child, and I was eating a lot of dairy products, milk, cheese, and eggs, and fish, meat, chicken, and so on. And so I developed rheumatoid arthritis when I was a child and had severe anemia and a heart rhythm disturbance that was very severe. And I fainted all the time. I collapsed at church mass and at post offices and at other places and public bathrooms and so on. And I can recall those experiences, knowing very well that butter was not part of the process or the cause of my cardiovascular problems that I suffered from. Because when I stopped eating the proteins that were in these foods that I mentioned, my cardiovascular problems disappeared, including my arthritic conditions and my anemia. So the issue is less related to the fat content in these foods, but rather in the protein content, because if proteins are not digested properly, they become very damaging and inflammation producing, which all those diseases, including rheumatoid arthritis, are related to. So when people speak about arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, they are relating to an inflammatory process that takes place in the blood vessels, and particularly in the coronary arteries, where proteins will build up in the so-called basal membranes of these blood vessel walls that hold these arteries together. And these proteins, which are derived, basically breakdown particles, fragmented proteins from meat, fish, chicken, eggs, anything that is heated in terms of like heated a steak or eggs that are fried, or an omelette, or even a boiled egg. When these proteins that are normally in a very soft state, for example, a liquid egg, when you heat it, it becomes coagulated. So the three-dimensional structure of the protein becomes damaged and breaks down, which creates protein fragments that make their way, unfortunately, into the bloodstream. And the body doesn't do well with these proteins moving around in the blood, because that can cause instant platelet aggravation and make the blood very thick. So in order to help itself there, the body is taking these proteins and builds them into the basal membranes, that supporting membrane of the blood vessel wall, and that itself is an immediate remedy for that, against that thickening of the bloodstream. However, in the long term, these proteins sitting there in the basal membrane make the basal membrane thicker, and it causes a slow inflammatory reaction inside the blood vessels. And so as these blood vessels become more and more inflamed, the body will have to deal with the wounds that are created because of that. And these little wounds or lesions that are generated, they are potential time bombs, because when they go off, meaning that if any blood clot that is formed from these wounds and lesions enters the heart or the brain, then a heart attack or a stroke results from that. And when a person consistently or regularly eats these kinds of foods, the situation becomes progressively deteriorated, in that the body will have to take recourse to other survival or protective mechanisms, such as the dispatching of extra cholesterol, which is formed in the liver by the liver. And these extra cholesterol molecules, which are known as bad cholesterol or LDL or VLDL, very low density lipoproteins, they will be dispatched to these wounds and lesions, and they attach themselves to them to form a bandage, which is protecting the blood vessel, or that part of the damaged blood vessel. And if the blood vessel, because there's a high blood pressure in the coronary arteries, when it happens that some of these patches, these softer patches, will break loose, then a blood clot from behind may escape into the heart and cause a heart attack, or if it moves up into the brain area, it will cause a stroke. And this is, these are some of the leading causes of death in the world. And so it's important to understand that the protein is more behind that. It's not so much the fats that are associated with these protein foods. And when we look at studies that were done on butter, or other saturated fats, they have never really been shown to have any damaging effects on the blood vessels themselves. So even though there's cholesterol attached to these blood vessels, the cholesterol is not caused by eating butter or other kinds of fats. And so there's a huge misunderstanding, which is intentional, I must say, because the food industry works hand in hand with the pharmaceutical industry, so they needed to find an excuse to produce a new class of drugs that would basically target the cholesterol fats in the body, trying to get them down because they think that the cholesterol is a risk factor for heart disease, which it is not, and there is now ample research to verify that. There are dozens of studies that have shown there is no link between high cholesterol and coronary artery disease. So it's important to understand that butter, olive oil, other kinds of saturated fats, unless they are damaged fats that are rancid fats. We don't want to eat rancid oils. We don't want to eat refined oils, which are already rancid, because once you heat oils at very high temperatures or for a long time, then they become rancid, oxidized. And oxidized fats, which contain trans fatty acids, they are extremely damaging to the cell membranes of every cell in the body, not just the cells that make up the arteries. So that's a different topic that we can discuss at another time. But butter itself is now known to actually be protective of the heart. And there's new research that has recently been published to that effect. So there should be no concern about eating fats, unless, of course, you cannot digest them. And that has more to do with the liver. If the liver bile ducts are congested, then you cannot digest any fat properly, and undigested fats will ferment in the large intestine. And once they are fermented, then they are basically being attacked by bacteria, further attacked by bacteria, which will break down these fats into harmful trans fatty acids and rancid oxidized fats, that will, when absorbed, will cause damage to the blood vessel walls and also to the cell membranes, making them, creating little holes in them, and that can cause kidney damage and brain damage as well. So it's important to understand there's a difference between good fats, fats that are unnatural like margarine, fats which are extremely damaging for the heart and for the entire cardiovascular system and for the kidneys. And then to look at wholesome fats that are contained in nuts, that are contained in natural butter. I recommend organic butter, not butter that is from inorganic pesticide hormone treated comes from hormone treated cows, but from naturally raised cows. So I hope that this will help to make you understand a little bit more about why butter should not be vilified, and that it's actually a wholesome food that can have many benefits if you can digest it. If you cannot, then it's better to make sure that your liver bile ducts are cleaned out through a series of liver and gallbladder flushes so that you can digest fats, because fats are needed to digest carbohydrates and proteins and absorb minerals and vitamins, most importantly the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin K, D, E, and D. So it's very, very important that we make sure that the liver functions well so that you can digest and absorb fats. Thank you. It definitely helps to break down deposits of these fatty acids, particularly in the cell membranes and also in connective tissues around the body.